So I think that's the piece that's interesting. It's not just I get more content from this creator that I like. It's more than that. Is that the people who do it well are able to create a fully functioning community behind that paywall that not only drives interest, but much more importantly, retains people within the group.
You clearly have a lot of well-informed opinions and ideas around the business of sports, and so much so that you actually had your own podcast prior to this one, of course, and Second Nature, which I know we both love, called The Business of Sports Discourse that you launched a couple of years ago. Talk to me about the thought around building a new podcast. Why was something like that of interest to you, and will you bring it back?
I started that for the exact same reasons that I started Rambling Runner. And then later, the exact same reasons I started Road to the Trials, which I first called Road to the Olympic Trials. And thank God they didn't sue me because there was no way I was allowed to use that use that term.
You got that cease and desist, yeah.
Right. Later changed to Road to the Trials.
Which is probably also trademarked, but whatever.
It probably is. Maybe I'll just change the Road to the Trails. Be like, oh, it was a misspelling.
Right, yeah. It's just a spelling mistake. Off to Western states.
Right. I can't tell you how many times I've written trails and is connected to trials or vice versa, because I've used both so many times in different, text exchanges. When it comes to founding these sorts of things, or, founding is too heady of a term, just starting them in general. Basically, it's not that I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I need an idea. What can I do? It's almost exactly the opposite. Of hey, I can't stop having these conversations. It's I think about it all the time. I'm either talking to myself, my dog, the mirror, or I'm spamming my friends with phone calls and talking to them about it, whether they want me to or not. And that was basically the idea behind it. So I had a co-founder, Jason Macaluso, who's a great guy, and we would have these conversations all the time. He was actually one of my prospects at Providence College. So he was one of the people I would contact about raising money. And 99% of the time, we would not talk about that. We would just talk about the business of sports. And he was into triathlon and stuff like that. So that was kind of the idea. It's I was thinking about these things all the time. I was talking about these things all the time. And after a while, I just kind of took it to the next step and said, well, why don't I just if I'm having these sort of conversations anyway, I'm doing this kind of research anyway as a hobby, let's just kind of take the next logical step. Now, I didn't, expect anything to come out of it necessarily. I didn't have any, if it failed, I didn't care. Again, this was just kind of the next natural progression as opposed to a line in the sand or paradigm shifting moment. It certainly was not. And that was just kind of the vibe. So we did it. I was really excited that we did it. Ultimately, I had to make a decision whether I want to continue that podcast or start Road to the Trials. I couldn't have 3 podcasts at one time at that point and still do them justice. So I ultimately decided to do Road to the Trials, which was a good move for me, even though I loved that business podcast. Ultimately, I think it was a great example of this is the reason to start this sort of thing, as opposed to saying, I need to start something and then coming up with an idea later. Have it be more organic in terms of what's percolating inside of you for a long period of time, right? Not hey, I really got into pickleball this weekend. What a great sport. I'm going to now do a pickleball podcast. And you can name the topic, but it's not that short term. It was much more long term. And that was the sort of thing. Again, I'm doing the same thing right now. I mean, literally 10 days ago, I started a new YouTube channel and a new Instagram page about basically me doing 2 to 3 minute takes on a specific sports topic. That's not about running because I follow these sports all the time. Now, is it big? No. I got 6 followers on YouTube, right? I got 500 followers on Instagram. It's nothing right now. And that's fine. Right? What will it be in 2 or 3 years? I don't know. It might be defunct. It might be what Rambling Runner is. It might be something else. I have no idea. But this is a great example. But I was already having these conversations with my poor neighbors when I was walking the dog. So it's I might as well find a home for them that's a little bit more universal and applicable to the broader community.
So one other podcast that you also organized that you haven't discussed yet is Relay. So tell me more about Relay and where did that idea come from? Again, sounds like it was probably something you were already thinking about and this was the execution of it versus I want to talk to 6 people at a time. How do I make that happen?
Right. So Relay, the foundation of Relay was kind of the first idea was, hey, we're seeing a lot of the running legacy media brands really struggle, right? And primarily because they were churning through subscribers. The print media business was gone for all intents and purposes, and they were having trouble with getting consistent sponsorship dollars. from various outlets. And even when they did get them, it did kind of conflict. Is this sponsored content? Like you're taking all these sponsorship dollars from like every single running shoe company, and then you're putting out like what best running shoes are out there. And it's like, okay, this is obviously like connected to your sponsors. Like this article's on the page right next to like the Brooks ad. And like the picture I'm seeing is a Brooks picture. Like there were inherent conflicts in that business. And I'm not taking a shot at it. That's a really hard business. There's a reason that it's struggling. Like it's very, very challenging. So I thought, hey, what if we put together an idea of like having a subscriber base on Patreon with a very clear and understandable business model. People know exactly where their money's going and they subscribe and they get certain content. So that was the idea behind it. So we had 9 people on Relay in terms of contributors to start, and it was $9 a month. And we were very transparent. Like every single person on the team gets $1 per subscriber. So you know exactly where your money's going, right? So that was the idea, and that's how we formed it. And the idea at first was to have it be multimedia in terms of writing, video, and audio. And for the first year, we kind of did a variety of different things. We learned, and ultimately we took it off Patreon in terms of it being paywalled and just made it a podcast. We took the thing that people loved most about Relay, which was our weekly group chat episodes, and we just made that the podcast. And occasionally we'll also throw in like a Friday episode. But for the most part, we just focus on once a week group chat episodes about what's currently happening in the running community. And also like, because we have some interesting people on the show, what's going on in their running lives and having a million tangents along the way. And people really liked it. So it was great because these sorts of things oftentimes is based on, are you getting really interesting people who can work well together and don't need to be managed? Right. And that's exactly what we got. We had an unbelievable group of people, and some people have kind of churned through. We've had some people decide to leave Relay for good reasons, and then people come back on to fill their spot. And it's been such a fun project to work on. It's one of the most popular running podcasts in the country. And I think it's been, for us, has been a really fun passion project. And I say that because it doesn't make any revenue, but it's still worth it for us as an endeavor to not only put out something that we enjoy doing, it has a really fun audience we get great feedback on, but also it allows us to expand what we want to do, generally speaking, right? Like a good example is in the fall, Laura Thweet, who had joined Relay a year before, our professional runner at the time, she got a job with New York City Marathon doing broadcasting during marathon weekend. And it was in part because of her experience at Relay and building up her chops in the broadcasting space, because prior to Relay, she didn't have any broadcasting experience.
Talk to me more about the monetization strategy and the Patreon versus ad supported. Like it's something I've thought a lot about. I have a Patreon. I don't ever promote it. I actually think you can subscribe through Spotify. It's bad enough that I don't even know, but for those who want to support, I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's not something that I've done. I've talked with Jason Fitzgerald about his thoughts on this. And he's like, I don't like Patreon because I don't want people to think of it as a charity. Like I want to give them value and have a value transfer in the use of something like that. So he doesn't use one. He monetizes in other ways. I'm curious how you think about it. You've talked about paywalling and putting content behind that paywall, and that's where the value transfer happens. Why does that model work? Why does that model not work? Tell me more.
The way we did it didn't work. And it's because we didn't have anything outside the paywall coming out regularly of substance
to drive people to the paywall.
That's exactly right. I believe because we had such great people who were extremely popular in the running space, that having them talk about Relay would in and of itself, that the trust had already been built up, that people would then subscribe. And that did work, but it didn't work in the long term in terms of like continuing to drive new people or people who were just interested or like just wouldn't sign up for something without getting much more experience. Like, the sales cycle, they weren't getting, 10 to 20 touches before they hit the buy button. They were just basically getting a referral from somebody they liked. And like that just wasn't enough in retrospect. I would say, generally speaking, the running world hasn't figured out Patreon the way other genres have, right? I think that there are other genres who do it much better, in part because they basically, let's say like you get to become closer to me as a person, and we'll have more personal interactions if you're on my Patreon. And you have other situations where they'll open it up to Discord becomes a big thing. Like if you're part of my Patreon community, then you're also part of this really engaged message board community through Discord. And that allows that to happen. I think there's just a couple ones off the top of my head. Like you'll see comedians use Patreon really well, in part because people get to, some of the insider content that they don't get on the podcast side. You'll see, interestingly enough, Like liquor reviewers do really well with Patreon, you know? So like there's like these like say the bourbon community, right? Like there's a really interesting like bourbon rabbit hole on YouTube where people are reviewing bourbons, but you know, they're also entertaining while they do it. The same reason that people love Kafuzi. It's not just because they have the shoes.
Well, because they make the ask to subscribe to the Patreon when people are 3 drinks deep. And it's like, yeah, sure, take my card.
There you go. But also they stay there because they're interested in not only those people, but behind that Patreon, they then connect to people who are also like sharing ideas and message boards about like what's going on with something that they care about. So I think that's the piece that's interesting. It's not just I get more content from this creator that I like. It's more than that. Is that the people who do it well are able to create a fully functioning community behind that paywall that not only drives interest, but much more importantly, retains people within the group. So it's not simply like, hey, I got my fill of Matt Chittim. I don't need to pay for any more Matt Chittim content. I get the joke at this point. It's much more like, I like being part of this community and I can't see giving that up because this is something that for $3, $5, $6 or whatever dollars per month, gives me far more pleasure than I'm, paying for.
Yeah, David and Megan Roche do a great job with this. They offer a second podcast that releases on Fridays, and then they send email content to their Patreon subscribers. And I think they've got a healthy stable of people that are paying for that, and it's supporting what they're doing, which is cool. You were about to say something related to Kafuzi?
I mean, like, the other part here, too, is that the people have to be entertaining, right? Like, people love Kafuzi not merely because he's really good at reviewing shoes, but they find him personally engaging and entertaining when he does it, right? It's not merely the information. I think that's the unlock, right? That it's not merely like, to put it into recruiting terms for like, for college athletic recruiting, it's not just the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes.